Hello.
Hey everyone. Feel free to add some notes to the agenda or some agenda items to the agenda. Like another minute.
Webcam is very unhappy. I don't know why. I'll turn it off.
Okay, we could get started. All right. Today is Monday, February 24th, 2025. This is a publicly available and recorded meeting. So please note that. On today's agenda items, we have CNCF onboarding. We could also discuss, it's not on the agenda right now, but we could also discuss the next release and the plan for that. Um, and if anybody has anything else they want to add, please feel free to do so. Okay, the first topic again is the onboarding. So right now CI is failing due to large workers not being, or large runners not being available. And that was something we had access to in the Fermion org, but not in the Spin framework GitHub org. So the way that this works, I think, and I'm double checking on the SANCF onboarding thread, is that basically once we've signed the contracts and done kind of the initial paperwork, then we get added to the CNCF GitHub Enterprise account for yeah, so that'll give us access to the larger runners. So that's what we are blocked on there for now. But we've requested the DocuSign to sign that and we've reviewed it. Ready, you still haven't gotten the DocuSign, right?
No, I've reached out to Daniel Crook from the Linux Foundation last week, and I've bumped a message again this morning to him.
Okay, perfect.
So
So
waiting to hear back, and we can sign whenever we get it.
okay, excellent. And I've also let them know that this is something that we're blocked on. So hopefully they can help us out. In the meantime, I haven't explored any alternatives. One of the things that we talked about in Slack was just like merging, force merging or bypassing the rule sets. Um, we can do that. And we could ask for like a number, more reviews. But that hasn't been something that anybody's really specifically requested. But we are recommending that you please like test locally the changes and the relevant tests. Go ahead, Freddie.
Um, is this something where it would be helpful if we could just go pro on the GitHub org for whatever a week or something like that to unblock and get access to large runners so we can do releases in regular CI and actually do something like this.
That would be super helpful, actually.
I'm happy to put in a credit card on our org.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, not happy, but happy to put.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So we'll just patch it up and um, you know, figure out the CNCF transfer stuff later. That'd be great. Cool. So we'll do that afterwards. And then the second topic is that we do have I think it's a 3-2 or 3-2-1 slated. I think it's 3-2. And Brian's gonna cut that release, and he was just waiting on the CI stuff to get figured out. So once that's ready to go, I think he'll be ready to cut a release, and that does include a fix for the component dependencies issue in SpinCube. So you can use a flag to basically build a component with all your dependencies included, and then that gets pushed to SpinCube and processed the way it should, or it will work the way it should. So yeah, anyways, this next release includes a fix for that. Go ahead, Kate.
It'll also include a fix for using the Cosmos DB SDK with KV to use basically request with connection pooling so that we have more efficient reads and writes.
Awesome. Go ahead, Friday.
This also includes a fix that has been a blocker historically for the JavaScript SDK. Because of web standards and the fetch API spec, you're not able to do fetch without a base URL on the server, which meant we've been blocked on doing intra-component communication in Spin, so component to component. And so this one adds, there's a Spin PR number 3003, which adds self.alt as an alternate domain for self requests, which unblocks a lot of the use cases in the JavaScript SDK.
And that got merged, right, Radu?
Yes, this
Okay,
one is in, just waiting for release.
sounds good. Okay, it sounds like this is a release everybody's looking forward to for various reasons, various housekeeping items in there. So great. Um, any concerns or questions on release, CNCF onboarding, or any other housekeeping type of things? Okay, sounds good. Does anybody have any other agenda items before we move on to triage? Go for it, ready?
I do. Let me find the NPM link. Uh, we have just pushed a new release for the Spin JavaScript SDK that fixes a ton of upstream. Well, it brings a ton of upstream fixes to things like streaming in particular. So I think this is 3.2, which may be the last one we push onto our existing NPM package before we do the move to the Spin framework, NPM org. So if you've been using the JavaScript SDK for anything, strongly recommend that you move to 3.2 because it brings in a ton of fixes. And also as a PSA, we now have a milestone for V4 of the JavaScript SDK. So lots of ideas there, in particular around modularizing the SDK and lots of improvements to consuming component dependencies. Particularly, someone built the component in Rust and you want to consume it in your JavaScript function. This should streamline a lot of that experience, and the modularizing of the SDK is a prerequisite to all of that. So modularizing the bits and build tools is going to be the focus for V4, and then on top of that, we're going to keep working on component dependency experience.
Sounds good.
And this is a public announcement slash invitation if people are interested in JavaScript work. There's a ton of activity in the new GitHub org slash spin.js SDK. Please get involved.
Thank you for that. Anybody have anything else they want to discuss or announce? Okay, I'm just gonna open up the spin issue queue. Let's go top down until we have a better system for this. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right, oops. Okay, all right, so we're just gonna try to assign these or label these or just kind of discuss and try to understand the issue. So Kate, you filed this one. Do you want to give us a quick overview?
Yeah, so this is an issue where essentially if you added an empty directory as a directory that you wanted your component to be able to access, the component would error out with just all requests returning this empty reply from server. Um, and Copernicus helped debug that the situation was specifically when it was an empty directory. Um, and this is even when you did use the flag. So with direct mounts, it was fine, but without direct mounts, it wasn't. And so I have a fix there that I'll bypass merge after this that enables you to also copy over empty directories.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Seems like that's being taken care of, so no need to triage there. Rename Fermion namespace and Spinwit. Um, let's take a minute to collect our thoughts on this one and review, and then we can discuss.
I think the follow-ups to my initial comment were just about we need to make sure we're backwards compatible.
Yeah,
Um,
so for this one, you said we should start brainstorming naming options, so what's that from? Should the namespace, I mean, should the naming just be Spin Framework or oh, okay, you're asking if it's should be Spin.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we've already started using a new namespace for like some of the Spin 3.0 stuff.
Yeah, you're right. And we're using Spin for that.
In terms of compatibility, we can always make copies of the existing interfaces that use the Fermion namespace and just basically provide identical interfaces under the new namespace while also, continuing to support the old namespace. And that way, folks who want to use like newer SDKs, could basically be target. I guess the trick is there's also forwards compatibility. It's like if you use a newer SDK and you're using an old interface with a new name, then it's not going to work on an older spin. I don't know if that made sense, but so there's a bit of a hazard there. But for those who want kind of just to not have any trace of Fermion in their components, that would be an option. I don't know how important this is to to people though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the option that Ivan lays out in like the second to last comment there. And as an alternative, Land's basically saying we could just always rename the interface package whenever we update it. So do it lazily instead to avoid code duplication. But I'm not sure which one CNCF would be comfortable with. If we can make like a promise of lazy migration, or if we need to just go ahead and duplicate.
Yeah. So there's like two bits here, I think. So there's this top level package name, which we can change with 4.0. But then the other ones that we're talking about are the specific interfaces, and I'm going to try to pull up an example. I guess the Postgres one would be a good example. Where is the 3.0 Postgres one? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so which specific interfaces are we trying to name? So like for the Postgres one, we now call it Spin Postgres. So we're saying that like any new one could be a spin one, but leave the old ones as is, or create duplicates for the old ones. But then we run into the issue that Joel mentioned earlier.
Yeah, if nobody's like demanding a certain path, you know, that's probably the easiest thing is just anytime we make a breaking change or introduce a new interface, we give it the new namespace, but leave the old ones alone.
What about the top? Yeah, that makes sense to me. What about this top level package, the Fermion spin at 3.0? If we just did spin at 4.0, I wonder if that'll satisfy most people's requests or complaints or desire to have kind of this be vendor neutral. Go ahead, ready?
I'm trying. Come on, webcam. Okay, I'm having really weird issues. I think that the main thing that I want to point out is that assuming we want to do starting from 4.0, do a breaking change of the spin framework spin at 4.0 interface, and that's the world. We cannot just remove or rename the existing 3.0 and below interfaces because apps would stop working, right? Okay. So would the task be to add backwards compatible, keep the backwards compatible, but add exist new versions of 3.0 with Spin Framework Spin? Is that the conversation here? Okay. Looking at the conversation we're having with Bob Kilman in the CNCF document, I've not seen that as a requirement. I would really like to see whether that's something people are one asking for, and two whether that's a requirement for anything. Like totally happy to do that going forward. It's a non-insignificant amount of work to do that backwards compatible and to do that indefinitely. It's unclear to me when we would stop doing that. And so I'm not sure if it seems like it's a significant amount of work. I have not seen that asked for retroactively.
I kind of feel like it was asked for. You do it as a next big breaking change or next big 1.0 release would be to um, rename all the interfaces, like duplicate all the widgets essentially, so that we had 4.0 working off of widgets that all didn't have the name Fermi on it.
So just to clarify my comment, I'm totally aligned that whenever we do a Breaking 4.0 release, that will not have the name Fermion in the package identifier. Like package spin framework, spin 4.0, that I'm totally aligned with that. That's not a debate in my mind, at least. I'm asking specifically whether we want to retroactively go back and duplicate every single version of every single WIT package that we've ever released to get rid of the Fermion name. Is that what's it's been asked for?
I think we clarified we were going to keep Fermion if needed for backwards compatibility. So previous versions, yeah, like in our statements about it and writing, it was like we will, um, or I think in like the WASM working group recommendation that was rewritten, or the one that was proposed, it was essentially um, WIT packages would be altered during a 4.0 release to remove Fermion naming, but Fermion naming is allowed for backwards compatibility with like previous spin versions.
Okay, go read that again. Yeah, thanks for clarifying. That makes sense. I'm also interested in whether the backwards compatibility part is satisfied if we don't duplicate every single WIT. But anyway, I want to monopolize the conversation. I'll go reread the document.
Well, this is good because we're identifying that there is definitely some confusion here. So let's get some clarity around that, more clarity around that. But Kate, you seem like you have a pretty good idea of what is necessary. Um, are there any action items on this particular issue, or what would be the next step here?
I think reading the doc and seeing what might try and get a better sense of what might be expected of us.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll get clarity and then we'll come back to this. Thank you. Um, oh, Radu, fun. This is you. Uh,
Yeah. Um, this is me. I was not able to debug this. And to there was no variable called member, and it was pretty jarring, and I could not debug anything. I did not go back and share the full repro because it was a publicly available repo that I was trying to recreate um, the template for. So yeah, action item wanted me to go and share the with people.
okay, sounds good. Why looks like a bug. I feel like we had a project board. Oh, we probably need to make sure our project boards are set up correctly here too. Okay, so we have a spin watch error.
Also blocked on me to share a repro, but I've been able to reliably reproduce this in several examples.
Okay, sounds good. If anybody has questions, feel free to jump in. I'm not looking at hands at the moment, so. There's a call to adding examples to the Spin SDK Rust docs. Any thoughts or anything around this one? Seems pretty good.
I can just add context, just that we wanted to enhance our REST docs for the REST SDK with more uh, inline documentation that could be surfaced to REST docs. And so I went through and added a bunch. The main quirk here was that WASI docs or
Mm.
like docs from WIT still get surfaced. And only if we re-export the um, functions can we add extra documentation. So there's some things that we can't really document at all
Okay.
beyond what is in the WIT. And then if we can go beyond the WIT docs are still surface. So it does lead to a little bit of weirdness and some incompleteness, but we're still a lot farther than we were.
Gotcha. So like something like WASI key value where you're just using WASI and it's not like a spin specific thing. You're relying just basically on the WIT documentation that's in that um WIT file. Is that correct?
For WASI key value, we do add a layer on top of it
Oh,
because we also have the spin KB interface. So we're doing some decision making there on which one to use, I think.
sure.
So we do have pretty good docs around WASI key value. I don't remember exactly which ones we don't have as much documentation on. I think there's some comments in here with that or in the PR.
Okay.
But some of them we like some specific functions we don't.
Okay. Cool. Okay. It seems like this is just something that folks need to work on. Do you have any other calls to action here?
Yeah, there are a few other interfaces that we just still need to do this for.
Okay. Are they enumerated somewhere, or do we just need to go take a look at the PR?
Yeah, the PR, I think at the end, um, will you go to the final review at the bottom? Yeah, MQTT, PG3, MySQL, and variables, we should take a look at seeing if we can add docs around.
Okay, so should I add a comment here? Is that sufficient, or do you want to open
Yeah,
to
I think that's good.
good? Okay, I wish I could I wish there was a project board that I could add this to. I probably do have one. Yeah, I need to migrate our project board from the Fermion org. Go ahead, Kate.
This is a different topic, so I didn't want to put off that project board migration point.
No, that's cool. Yeah, just action item for me, need to migrate. Kate, go for it, and then we'll call the meeting.
Okay, another migration oriented action item. Does anyone with powers that be, could you possibly pin some repos on the spin framework org and add like a repo, a README or something? Because when you go to spinframework.org, it basically is kind of this landing page that's like, we think you're gonna like it here. This is even for like incognito users or logged out people. So I think we should be able to like pin some repos and maybe add a description to the top of the um, repo and stuff like that, or the org.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I can also help. I can help with that. All right. It's top of the hour, so thanks everyone for joining, and see you next time.